Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. In today's video, we are going to take a look at this watch. It is a blast from the past. This is the Seiko 5 diver and it is affectionately known as the Seiko Frankenmonster. The official reference number for this watch is SKZ247. I think the watch was launched more than 10 years ago and they came in different colors. They've got the orange, the yellow, the blue and the all black. And fans were very quick to name this the Frankenmonster because of the bolts found, the securing bolts found on the shroud. So they've nicknamed this very aptly the Frankenmonster because it resembles the bolts found on Dr. Frankenstein's monster. So I think another reason why fans were quick to call this Frankenmonster is because of the bezel that really resembles the first gen monsters and the SKX781 or 779. They have very similar looking bezel, or in fact they are the same. I'm not quite sure about that. They do look very similar, so hence the connection between this model, the SKZ series, and the Monster series. So let me just share with you some background information. I first bought this watch way back in 2009. I bought it in 2009 and I sold mine I think in 2011. Hardly wore it. So I actually got this one used a couple of months back because I want to relive the good old days of good quality Seiko 5 divers. This one, although it's in the Seiko 5 collection, it is actually an ISO rated diver and I would say it's pretty well built. It's got a solid ending bracelet and I tell you, the lume is fantastic. We're going to take a look at the lume shot later on in this video. So let's just zoom in a little bit and I tell you more on the specs of this watch. The case diameter is 47.8 millimeters, including this shroud here, the plastic shroud, and it's got a case thickness of about 14 millimeters. Lug width is pretty much Seiko standard for divers at 22 millimeters, and the lug to lug length is about 48 millimeters, thereby making it very manageable despite the very big case diameter. So some more information you can't find on the official spec sheet. It's got a really big crown here. The crown is actually signed. You can see that it is signed with the Seiko 5 emblem. It is a very huge crown. It's about just under 9 millimeters and very easy to grip. Alright, and the bezel has a diameter of only 40 millimeters, and finally the crystal size is only about 30 millimeters. So despite the really huge case on paper, it's got a close to 48 millimeters case, the bezel and crystal size they're actually quite small, and I think it wears no bigger than a typical Seiko Monster. So this watch is also very heavy. It weighs about 180 grams with about 5 links removed. I bought this one used. You can see that it's got plenty of scratches and even the crystal is scratched, the Hardlex crystal, but 5 links were removed and it fits my wrist, so it's still very heavy at 180 grams. And powering this watch is the old school Seiko automatic movement, the 7S36. So yet another workhorse movement. I would say this is the previous iteration of the 4R series, so this one doesn't hack or it doesn't hand wind. The watch though does have a screw down crown. So now let's go on and talk about the design and build of this watch. Of course, it is known as the Frankenmonster because of the hex bolts on the shroud. So I would say this watch is very industrial design. It's a very extreme kind of design and may not sit well with a lot of fans who prefer more traditional designs. It's also got matching knurlings on the bezel as well as the center links on the bracelet. They are matching and I think they look pretty special, add a bit of uniqueness to the watch. And the overall design, I would say the watch has a very blocky feel to it. It's very blocky, plenty of angular parts, a bit like the Seiko Samurai, but I would say it's less refined. And as we look at the crown and crown guard area, you will see that the extreme design cues are carried over here. This crown guard and crown area, I think they're just protruding out way too much. You can see the left and right, they're just way imbalanced. So it is interesting to know that although this is part of the Seiko 5 series, it is actually an ISO rated divers, as you can see from the tsunami logo here. So most Seiko 5 would have the clear case back, but this one has the tsunami logo and it is indeed ISO rated. So I would say this is like a hybrid between Seiko 5 series. It keeps the price point low, but also it's got pretty good specs and you can use it as a proper dive watch. The overall build quality is pretty good. We've got an all solid steel bracelet, solid end links, solid links, and of course the clasp is pretty much entry-level Seiko stuff. It is a stem clasp, but it works, and it's got a diverse extension as well, which I will not be using, of course, because I don't think I will actually wear this watch out, let alone go diving with it. And I'd like to bring to your attention that the links are pretty well made in this watch. Take a look here, the insides of the links. You can see that it actually tries to look like a three-piece. So if I were to show you a different Seiko model, which I bought more recently, you will see that the inside of the links, they make no effort to pretend to be a 3-link. It is a one piece that tries to look like a 3-link bracelet. Whereas on this old school Frankenmonster SKZ247, they've actually bothered to make the inside look like a 3-piece. I'm not too sure if it's indeed a 3-piece, but well, it sure looks like it is. And now let's move on and talk a little bit on the dial design of this watch. I really love the fact that it's got a matching date wheel, because it really makes the dial more uniform, cleaner. I wish more Seikos would have matching date wheels. And also the handset is really simple. We've got this broadsword looking type of hands, which is unlike most Seikos. In the era we've got the monsters, or even recently we got turtles and all. They've got hands that are slightly more elaborate, whereas on the Frankenmonster it is much more simpler. And I actually find the second hand here really cool, because I really like the Lume dot counterbalance and the little red tip here. I think it adds a little bit of a dash of color to the otherwise monochrome color scheme. And you'll notice that the red second hand, the tip, actually cuts really nicely along the hour markers. That's a pretty good job by Seiko. And lastly, we gotta talk about those huge blobs of lume applications. I mean, this watch is also renowned for its lume. We're going to take a look at the lume shot in a while, but if you take a look here, the lume is so bright precisely because the lume plots, they are so huge, they are really big, so much real estate going on. So once I switch off the lights, you will see how bright the lume is. And here you can see how bright the lume is. It's just crazy bright. It's like, if you were to wear this into the cinema, I think that's it, you'll be chased out. So for comparison, we're going to have the Seiko Turtle, and as I mentioned, due to the size of the lume plots or the lume application, you will see that the Frankenmonster indeed has an advantage in terms of lume brightness. And here's the reshot of the watch in natural light. You can see that the watch is still very manageable despite the large size, and I really must say I like the bracelet very much. I managed to get a good fit, and I'm liking the knurling. It's very special. The main complaint would be the crown guard area and the large crown. Apart from that, I would say the fit is really very good. And for size comparison, today we are going to put the Seiko Turtle next to the Frankenmonster, and one look you can tell that the Seiko Turtle, although it's smaller, but it's got a larger crystal, thereby making it more legible. I would say the time is easier to read on this one here. It's got bigger dial and more empty spaces, thereby making it easier to read. On the other hand, the Frankenmonster is a bit chunkier, with all the thick bezel and shroud going on, and huge crown and crown guard area. And also, if you were to take a look at the thickness, although they're about the same, this one is about they're both about 14 millimeters. I think the Turtle is about 13.6 or something like that. And although in terms of thickness they're the same, you always get the impression that the Frankenmonster is slightly bigger, again due to the angles, the angular sights, and all the bulk that you get from the shroud and all these bolts and all that. So to sum up, I would say the Frankenmonster has got those crazy, extreme kind of design cues that may please watch collectors who are looking for such designs in their watches. It's got those crazy looking hex bolts, oversized crown, extremely oversized crown, and the lume plots, they just look huge. In fact, the lume looks almost green even on in natural light, but when it is dark you really see the lume light up and it's really bright. So I would say this is possibly the champion of all Seiko Lume Bright watches. I've never really seen a watch that glows as brightly as this one. And that being said, it's still one of those entry-level Seikos. It's got a movement that is very pedestrian. It's got non-hacking, non-hand winding functions, but I think you can actually do an upgrade to a 4R movement to get a hacking and hand wind functions. But this watch, I'm just going to leave it as it is. I doubt it has been serviced at all. I think this watch must be more than 10 years old. I bought it used, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, and I'll see if it needs an upgrade one day. So for me, this is definitely a fun piece for nostalgic reasons. Like I said, I own this one. I first bought this one more than 10 years ago, and looking back, this is one of the watches that really first got my attention to Seiko divers. And about 2 months ago, I found one used on the local classifieds, and I bought it back at the same price that I paid for it 11 years ago. It's crazy. So there you have it, the Seiko Frankenmonster SKZ247. If you're a fan of this SKZ series, the Frankenmonster series, if you have the orange one, yellow one, blue one, or the all black one, feel free to comment below and tell me if you like this watch or if you dislike this watch. Alright, and from me, the Watch Kaki, and this is George, we're gonna say goodbye for now. See you next week. Bye bye.